and we will not interrupt them during the speeches. We invite you to put questions that you have in the chat on the right-hand side of the screen. We are going to collect those and we will handle them in batches afterwards. If we have time in the end, we may also open the floor to questions and contributions from the audience. So to introduce the speakers, we have a really good panel here today. First, we have speakers from the European Commission. We have Anne Branch from DG Employment, from my unit. It is the unit dealing with the social economy and the social economy action plan. Then we have Anna Athanasopoulou from DG Grow, also dealing with social economy. She's the head of unit for social economy proximity ecosystems. Afterwards, we're going to pass the floor to the consortium that prepared the study on the impact of the Social Business Initiative of 2011. We have Silke Haarich from Spatial Foresight, Giulia Galera from Eurixe, and Wolfgang Spiess-Knafl from European Centre for Social Finance. After that, we are going to hear from the social economy sector itself. We have Suzanne Wisse-Huiskes from the Euclid network, and we have Denis Stokkink pour la Solidarité, who will then highlight their views on the contributions that were made before. So we have a very exciting panel. We're going to set out the political context, look back a bit into the previous Commission initiative on the social business, and we will look forward to what the social economy action plan could or should look like. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Anne Branch. Please, Anne, go ahead.
Can you hear me, Miia? Yes, okay, thanks, Miia, and good morning, everyone. So I'm very happy to speak at this session on behalf of DG Employment and to speak on the road to the Social Economy Action Plan and to say some words about the political context and background. Now, I'd like to begin by recalling the words of the Commission President last year when she stated that we need to make a systemic modernization across our economy, society, and industry. We need to change how we treat nature, how we produce and consume, live and work, eat and heat, travel and transport. So this recognizes the need to reinvent an economic model based on fair, sustainable, and inclusive growth. Now, the Commission has adopted a range of measures in the last year to tackle the climate challenge we face, namely through the European Green Deal, and to address the social problems which have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 crisis. And the Commission's work on the social economy is also a contribution to tackling the economic, climate and social challenges we face. And it's never been as important as now to our policy objectives. And the political momentum is high. So since the entry into force of President von der Leyen, over 20 Commission initiatives have referred to this potential. So these acknowledge the range, the contribution of the social economy to a range of EU goals, including the UN SDGs, the implementation of the principles of the European Pillar of Social Rights, the circular economy, the renovation wave, industrial policy, the skills revolution, helping young people, and building a union eliminating discrimination in all its forms. Now, Commissioner Schmidt has been tasked by the Commission President to prepare the action plan by the end of the year so that it enhances social investment, so supports social economy actors and social enterprises to start up, scale up, innovate and create jobs, to provide more accessible services, to assist with labour market integration and upskilling, to address environmental challenges and to strengthen communities, in particular at the local level. Now, that's quite a list, but it shows just how extensive the reach of the social economy is. I think most of us here today are quite familiar with the social economy, but of course we know that it encompasses a range of actors, including social enterprises, cooperatives, mutuals, associations and foundations. And they're present in a whole range of economic sectors, and the landscape and historical traditions in Europe are highly diverse. But we know what brings them all together is that their commitment to put people first and to reinvest most of their profits into their social mission and the enterprise. Now, the action plan will seek to identify EU-level solutions to the problems and barriers facing the social economy and holding back its full potential. And we want to help member states in this. Now, the aim is therefore to improve the enabling conditions for the social economy across Europe, including improving the visibility and recognition and access to finance and markets. We're not starting from scratch. We'll build on the experience that we've gained from the 2011 Social Business Initiative and the 2016 Startup Scale-Up Initiative. And we commissioned the study that will be presented today, which Miia mentioned, and Silke and Wolfgang are here to present it. We commissioned this study to help us collect the necessary evidence to shape this action plan and to help us understand the difficulties which are faced by social economy organisations and social enterprises, and the extent to which EU national and regional policies adequately address them. Now, it was a massive exercise. Over 300 stakeholders were interviewed, and including some of you who are present here today. And we'd like to thank you all for your contributions and your time. And so the study is really an important part of the evidence base for drafting the action plan. Now, in addition to this study, a range of other work has also been carried out in recent years to build the evidence base. I'll mention, for example, the mapping study, which we commissioned. The mapping study, this was a mapping study on the social enterprise ecosystems, and it covered 35 European countries, as well as a range of country reviews, policy briefs, and compendia of good practices, which have been prepared in cooperation with the OECD. We've also engaged in extensive outreach with stakeholders. So first of all, the large number of interviews which formed part of the study. Then secondly, we published a roadmap on the action plan in March. The consultation ran for 8 weeks and closed on the 26th of April. And we received 133 replies, and all of this will contribute to drafting the action plan. We've also been liaising closely with the Commission's expert group on social economy and social enterprises, and Suzanne and Denis are members of that. So this dialogue has been extremely useful, and they've been working on this for a number of years, and have produced a report in 2016. And of course, that is important input too. And then finally, this summit, which is taking place yesterday and today, is also a key opportunity to collect input from stakeholders. So all of the conclusions from the discussions at the conference today and yesterday will be harvested and sent to us at the Commission, and they'll be brought into the action plan as far as possible. So I'd like to thank you for your active participation in all of these discussions, and I'm looking forward very much to the discussion during this session. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anne, for setting the context for today's session. I would then like to pass the floor to Anna Athanasopoulou from DG GROW to present the DG GROW. DG GROW is also very active on social economy and their angle and actions in this policy field. Please go ahead, Anna.
Thanks very much, Miia. First of all, congratulations for pronouncing my last name right. I know it's the first challenge of the day for you, perhaps, and maybe the biggest. Many thanks for that. And hello to everyone on the side, on my side, and also on the side of DG GROW. I'm very happy to see such dynamism during this summit, and this is the very reason why we decided to host the summit at this point in time, to give us more food for thought for the preparations of the Social Economy Action Plan, but for all the work, policy work that different Commission departments are doing and relating to social economy and social entrepreneurship. And indeed, I'm very happy also to bring in the perspective of DG GROW on social economy and the work that we do in the context of industry policy, SMEs, entrepreneurship, and internal market. Personally, I find this session an excellent opportunity also to take a moment during the summit to reflect on the co-creation element of public policies, which is very much relevant on social economy and social entrepreneurship. And this reflection is actually timely. Not only because member states are redesigning the economic landscape post-COVID, but also because, as we just heard also from Anne, the European Commission is adapting its policies and is putting forward new policy initiatives, many of them relevant to social economy. And of course, I will focus here only to two: the Social Economy Action Plan that Anne mentioned in quite detail, and the industrial ecosystem focusing on proximity and social economy, introduced under the updated EU Industrial Strategy, which was adopted a few weeks ago on the 5th of May. Now, the updated Industrial Strategy aspires to drive the transformation to a more sustainable, digital and resilient economy post-COVID, and draw in the lessons learned during the management of the pandemic so far. The backbone of the strategy will be our work on 14 industrial ecosystems in the single market. And I'm happy to say that social economy finds its place in the proximity, social economy and civil security industrial ecosystem. And this is very much a step to reinforce the place of social economy in the industrial and business landscape in the EU. Now, for each ecosystem, we will work together with public and private actors to shape tailor-made toolboxes to enable the green and digital transformation of the ecosystem and look at enablers and bottlenecks in that process, from access to investment, scaling up and access to markets, to skills, emerging business models, and barriers in the single market. So for that, in the context of this exercise, of course, we will also engage with social economy actors to co-create solutions for social economy to grow further. The session is also very much a stock-taking exercise, and in that sense, looking back at the last decade, from 2011 to 2021, at DG GROW, we have been particularly attentive to developing a policy framework for social economy and entrepreneurship, enabling social economy organizations and businesses to make the most of the single market. Let me highlight three areas on which we have concentrated our work on social economy in the context of industrial policy, SMEs, and entrepreneurship. First, it's about facilitating access to markets. Second, it's about promoting different forms of social entrepreneurship and partnerships. And third is about boosting awareness raising and visibility of social economy. Now, on the first area, accessing to markets, very much looking at public markets and the function of public procurement and how public procurement can actually be helpful for social economy actors to access value chains and provide services and products in the single market. In 2014, the EU public, in 2014, the EU Public Procurement Directive was adopted, and since then it has been transposed in national legislation in the member states. And indeed, we have seen that social criteria and reserved contracts in public procurement have been important tools for social economy actors in a number of member states. But we have also seen that this is not easy to absorb in the member states. And this is why, in order to promote the use of social clauses in purchasing procedures in the member states, we organized training and awareness raising events for contracting authorities in the member states in 2018 and 2019. We have published last year a compendium of 70 best practices in public procurement for social economy. And I hope you know it by now. If not, I really invite you to discover it. And we released yesterday, to be also topical, an updated version of the Buying Social Guide, which was initially presented in 2011, and it has now been updated into the new reality. These are some concrete steps, first steps in our mind, on which we will continue building. Now, the second area is somehow different and is very much about promoting different models of social entrepreneurship and looking at partnerships and building networks that can bring together social entrepreneurs and mainstream enterprises or larger companies. So in that sense, we have run a pilot to disseminate best practices for worker buyout under the form of cooperatives in the member states, especially where awareness levels of this option, about this option, have been low. And again, we have also been running since 2016 and until today, a pilot to promote cooperative entrepreneurship among young people. I mentioned partnerships also because partnerships are important for social economy entrepreneurs to access markets and value chains. And this is the reason why we have been working to boost the cooperation between social economy enterprises and mainstream enterprises in different ways. For instance, we are supporting the development of social clusters in Europe as a tool for resilience in our territories. We have seen some first positive results. We're trying to build on clusters, social clusters already existing on the ground, and we have brought clusters closer to European cooperation by mobilizing the European Cluster Cooperation Platform, and we hope that this will enable partnerships to grow between social clusters and mainstream clusters or clusters in other industrial sectors. And I come now to the third area in which we have been active, which is again about partnerships, but of different nature. It's partnerships between regions, partnerships to boost interregional cooperation and to help boosting the awareness and visibility of social economy. In that sense, since 2018, we have been working with more than 100 regions and cities across the EU who have joined our network of European social economy regions, known by the acronym ESER, the ESER community. And these regions have been organizing awareness-raising events to promote social economy across Europe. Only this year, 30 regions are focusing their events on skills and the new European Bauhaus. And last year, we took this initiative to the next level by supporting under the COSME program European social economy missions that actually focus on inter-regional cooperation through the sharing of good practices and through identifying solutions to common challenges in regions linked to social economy. And currently, 22 consortia are active, mobilizing 80 regional entities and social economy stakeholders. Where are we now? Well, I think as Anne also mentioned, we are looking at different horizon ahead of us. We are perhaps at crossroads, facing the future and also the place we would like social economy to have in the post-COVID era. And on the side of DigiGrow, I join Anne's message and hope that the political ambition behind the updated industrial policy and the forthcoming social economy action plan will help indeed raise the momentum for social economy at the European level, but also in the member states. And on our side, of course, we will continue working together with all stakeholders and of course with our colleagues in DG Employment and other Commission services for a stronger social economy in the EU. So for me and for us, it's the beginning and not the end. So thank you for your attention.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anna. That was very interesting and important points there on access to markets and importance of partnerships, and also to the ESER network. So next, I would like to pass the floor to the consortium that conducted this study on the impact of the social business initiative. So please, Silke, Giulia, and Wolfgang, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Yes, I see nodding. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, good morning to everybody in this session, and thank you for being here. And thank you to the Commission for having us invited to present the study. Yeah, my colleagues Giulia and Wolfgang will also speak later. I see some questions in the chat, but I think this will be handled after our presentation. So yeah, you will refer to the documents, and I think at the beginning of the chat there are already some links to the documents or to some of the relevant documents, and especially to the study we are presenting now. So I would start to share the screen. Let's see if it works. Yeah. Okay, it seems not to work. I think I will leave and come back in and then start sharing. We'll just wait a second. Well, maybe Miia and Estelle, you can talk about the studies or say some words. See you just now.
Okay, so indeed, this study, as was already mentioned, it ran over the course of last year and interviewed a lot of stakeholders. It really was like an evaluation of the impact. Silke, you're back already. So it looked into the impact of the social business initiative in various different areas. Today's presentation will focus more on the areas where action is still needed, as well as the possible future policy actions. The main conclusion of the study, of course, was that the SBI has had plenty of impact in many of the policy areas, in basically across the board, but the impact is not quite even across the EU member states, and that there are some areas where further action is still required. I will leave that for the consortium. We can finally see your screen, Silke.
Yes.
So that is excellent.
Okay, and I hope you can hear me also now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Yes, sorry for the delay. Yeah, I will start presenting the results of the study, and especially also the context of the study and the design of the study. So just starting with looking back, we have heard just now that we are at the beginning of something, but of course, there has been already a lot of activity going on the last 10 years, and this is just an overview. And you can see, of course, a small description in the study itself describing this social business initiative from 2011, the communication with the 3 action lines in it, and then also some of the key cornerstones of the activities following on this communication from the European Commission. So you can see just here some of these milestones in the way towards the social economy action plan. So what we have tried to analyze this context in the study, and we started, of course, with also first getting an overview of what has been done already, because there were many things and many activities going on, and it was not so easy to get this overview because, as you can imagine, from this picture here, that this is, of course, many different activities with many different target groups, with many different outcomes and results. So the analysis of the impact of these activities was then quite difficult. So this picture shows you the different areas. So it's just a description or overview of the activity, so not the real outcome of the study. In the blue area, in the blue corner, you can see the activities related to access to private funding and to the mobilization of EU funds for the social economy and the social enterprises, based on the social business initiative from 2011. In the green corner, you can see the activities related to the better understanding and increased visibility, and also to building up capacities. So, for example, we see here the mapping studies of the different European countries that was already mentioned. These studies were already mentioned by Anne. And we also see here, for example, the European social economy regions, this scheme mentioned by Anna. In the orange corner, we can see the activities related to the legal environment, to the context, to the public procurement, access to markets, and also state aid related activities. And then there were also activities related to some areas which resulted as important for the whole endeavor of social economy promotion, but were not defined as such, or not as initial objectives in the social business initiatives. But still, I think now they are well established as action fields. So, for example, we have here the external dimension, the yellow area of activities, the external dimension, so external to the European Union countries. This refers to the neighboring countries of the European Union, but also to third countries and also to the rest of the world, of course. And in the gray area, we have the social innovation, technologies, and new business models. So this, of course, is taken up speed in the last years with the digitization relationship, the social innovation, and of course now also through the COVID pandemic with the new solutions that we find, like this event here for digital and remote interaction and work. Just a short word about the study design. As we heard already, this was mainly based on structured interviews or semi-structured interviews to players at European level, so at EU level, but also to EU institutions, EU lobby organizations, and also many interviews at country level, so at local, regional level. And I'm sure that some of you also participated in these interviews or in the case study analysis, which were also developing insights and information and knowledge for the analysis. So we carried out this contribution analysis on the basis of the theory of change, causal analysis to find out really the areas of impact of the social business initiative in the different fields and in the different countries. Of course, the study has a certain limit of pages, so it cannot be so specific. For example, the mapping studies are giving much more insight into the national contexts of the social economy and the social enterprises. But this study brought it all a little bit together to have these different, the different lines of action connected, I would say. To analyze the impact of the social business initiative, we defined 5 impact dimensions that are related to these color fields that I showed earlier, to the activities. So impact dimension A was related or is related to the regulatory and institutional environment. Impact dimension B to the visibility, recognition, and better understanding of social economy and social enterprises. So you can see here the different forms of impact areas that are behind these or in these impact dimensions. Impact dimension C is the access to finance block. Impact dimension D was the digitization, new business model, social innovation block. And impact dimension E was related to the external dimension of the social economy and external action and external policies of the European Union. So we analyzed the different research questions. So we had these, in the terms of reference, they were defined that we had to analyze different aspects like relevance, efficiency, coherence, effectiveness, of course, of the different activities, and the EU added value. And my colleagues will now present parts of these answers to the research questions, and we will then come to the policy options and the recommendations that we defined later.
Many thanks, Silke, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. Thank you for joining this session. Before focusing on the relevance of the SBI, excuse me, I will briefly recall the objectives of the SBI. The first objective was improving access to funding, namely facilitating access to private funding, mobilizing EU funds, and reinforcing managerial capacities in social enterprises. The second objective was increasing visibility of social enterprises, namely developing tools to gain better understanding, capacity building with national and regional public authorities, promoting professionalism and networking. The third objective was improving the legal environment, which included developing adequate European legal forms and regulations on public procurement and state aid. Both the desk research and interviews corroborate the appropriateness of these objectives back in 2011 and also today. According to the respondents we have interviewed in the frame of the study, the general objectives have not lost their relevance. Indeed, needs still persist, although with different intensities. And intensity depends upon the degree of development of social enterprises and also the degree of maturity of the ecosystems wherein social enterprises operate in each country. there is still a perceived need for actions in the field of visibility and recognition. This includes the adoption of proper legal framework, as well as the need of promoting a better understanding of social enterprises by public authorities and the general public. Needs that are even more important include the improvement of managerial skills and professionalization, access to market, and availability of finance. Overall, no action based on the SBI was actually regarded as irrelevant. However, some actions had a limited outreach. At the same time, our study has shown that the SBI objectives were sometimes perceived as too broad and partially disconnected from the national and local context. And this was particularly the case of rural or peripheral areas. Thank you, Silke. If you can move to the next slide. 6 policy initiatives were analyzed Six policy initiatives were analyzed regarding the relationship between costs and benefits. The European Social Entrepreneurship Fund regulation, the EASY third axis, the EFSI, the mapping study, European Commission OECD collaboration, and European social economy regions. Based on our study, there was a clear benefit and contribution from all 6 policy initiatives that have been analyzed. The detailed results of the specific cost-benefit analysis of selected SBI actions provide a sort of mixed picture. The most efficient contribution was observed from the instruments working predominantly in the area of awareness raising, knowledge, and network building. This was followed by funding initiatives that also have clear benefits, but with much higher costs associated. One lesson learned is that initiatives focusing on regulation require complex and lengthy processes with considerable cost associated before a tangible benefit can emerge. This was the case of the European Social Entrepreneurship Fund's regulation. Can you move to the next slide? Let me briefly recall the evaluation question that was addressed by our study. To what extent are the SBI and follow-up actions coherent with European Commission's policies and priorities, as well as with the wider EU policy? The analysis of high-level EU policy documents shows a general coherence of the SBI with other EU policies and priorities in terms of overall objectives and also dimensions. However, it should be noted that in some documents, and especially in those that have been delivered between 2011 and 2017, there is no explicit reference to the SBI or to the social enterprise and or broader social economy. Noteworthy is also that in some documents, the social enterprise and the social economy is simply mentioned as part of the wider private sector. So no reference is made to the real and potential role of these typologies of organizations. Furthermore, while the majority of respondents perceive the SBI as largely coherent with other EU policies, they believe that general coherence is only partially reflected at the operational level. To conclude, there is an expectation of stakeholders towards achieving greater coherence and mainstreaming social enterprises and the social economy in relevant policy areas, thanks to the forthcoming action plan for the social economy. Thank you. To move to the next slide. In terms of effectiveness, the SBI and its follow-up actions had significant effects on the regulatory and institutional environment of social enterprises. Most EU-level actions influence changes through the EU supporting function provided to member states. The effects have been higher, however, in countries with developing social enterprise ecosystems and lower in countries with more advanced or moderate ecosystems. So-called advanced countries already had in some instances proper legal frameworks in force or had in some other cases reform process in the pipeline that would have been probably adopted also without the SBI. Despite the fact that no EU level legal forms have been adopted. There has been, however, a positive evolution with regard to the legal recognition of social enterprises. And the institutional framework have also improved thanks to EU-level policy support, the action of EU-wide networks, and EU funding. Policy frameworks and strategies have been moreover adopted by 15 member states. Some of them were inspired by EU co-funding and EU high-level activities, such as council conclusions, EU high-level political events, and declarations, mutual learning, and exchange of knowledge via judges. However, visible influence is often not visible for most interviewees. EU public procurement directives, as already recalled, were adopted in 2014 and then transposed by all member states. They enable to address key critical issues regarding the application of EU competition law. Respondents are in general aware of the beneficial impacts of the two directives, and especially of social clauses and reserved contracts, which have actually enhanced access to market for social enterprises. However, the impact of EU public procurement rules is double-sided. Some respondents see hardly an adequate implementation of the rules at national level, particularly at regional and local level. In any event, there are important differences depending on the country and also on the type of social enterprise. And there is, nevertheless, a clear need to improve access to market also via co-planning and private procurement. As for the SGI package, a positive influence of the SBI can be noticed. It should be, however, highlighted that the SGI package was already in the pipeline when the SBI was launched. Nevertheless, the SBI helped adapt its content so as to take the specificity of the services delivered by social enterprises specifically into account. State aid is okay. Nevertheless, I just wanted to say that state is generally conceived as complex and burdensome. Okay, increased visibility, recognition, and understanding of social enterprise has been the main contribution of the SBI. In the perception of the interviewees, various EU activities had an influence on better information on the social enterprise and the social economy. Regarding statistical development, most interviewees are, however, not aware of the EU action to improve the statistical data provision on social enterprise and see it more as a national responsibility. SBI EU activities substantially influence mutual learning and good practice exchange. They did so directly via various programs like Interreg, Erasmus+, and indirectly via European networks of social enterprises and the judges. EU activities have also been important in stimulating research on social enterprise and the social economy. Effective measures included European Commission studies and reports, as well as the funding of research studies and activities through Horizon 2020, Erasmus+, and others. As concerns education and training, activities have increased since 2011, but they are not yet widespread. While EU-supported programs and Erasmus+ projects are seen as important for influencing social enterprise education and training activities, domestic support activities are still rather rare or insufficient. Overall awareness on social enterprise and their ecosystems has, however, increased largely thanks to many SBI EU activities. The SBI has had, nevertheless, limited effect on networks and representation, despite direct support was provided at EU level via easy third access and indirect support via networks and cooperation projects. Private labels, marks and certification can raise actually visibility and boost social enterprise development. However, they normally show several shortcomings as they are unable to cover all types of social enterprises, and usually some types end up being excluded. And influence of the SBI is overall perceived as marginal with respect to private labels, marks and certifications. Okay, the analysis has shown that the main contribution of the SBI was on visibility of social enterprise in EU and national programs. The notion of social enterprise used by the European Structural Investment Fund regulation of 2014-20 made stakeholders considerably more aware of the social enterprise as a specific thematic field. This increase in awareness took place also thanks to European regional funds and the European Social Fund in many member states. Also, the Easy Third Axis is a well-known program which triggered public funding besides private social finance. Social economy topics were also included in EU programs and projects such as FP7, Horizon 2020, Interreg, Erasmus+, even if the direct work on the social enterprise is not widespread. Rather, it is widespread on related topics such as social innovation and social entrepreneurship. Improvements in visibility are also noticeable in non-EU countries, like, for instance, Macedonia. Thank you very much. I'm happy to give now the floor to my colleague, Wolfgang, who will analyze the effectiveness of the SBI with respect to the impact dimension access findings.
Thank you, Giulia. That was a lot of content and a lot to think about. Let me now move on to access to finance. When we look at, what we learn about finance is that you need to build a complete ecosystem. So you need to have, you need to make sure that there's enough capital, so that there's supply of capital, but also you need to make sure that there's enough demand, so that social enterprises are ready to take on the additional investments. So it means that you need to make sure that there are good managerial skills, but also conditions should be fine in financial intermediaries. So that's why we looked at 4 different areas for access to finance. And let me quickly recall what effectiveness means. Effectiveness means that you have something like a previously defined objective, and then you look like how well have you achieved what you have meant to make in 2011. And in 2011, the Social Business Initiative was officially launched. And the key action number 4 was to introduce investment priorities for social enterprises in 2 programs. And in 2013, the investment priority was officially introduced for the European Regional Development Fund, the ERDF, and also for the ESF, the European Social Fund. And when you look at the number, it's quite impressive, like how much it has really changed over the last 7-8 years. And for the ESF, I'm just reading the numbers here. For the ESF, you have approximately 1 billion, so a bit less than 1 billion, on the topic of promoting the social economy and social entrepreneurship. And what we found was that Poland, Romania, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain were countries who spent most in this period. And the examples of Portugal and Poland are quite well known. They have made good use of the ESF funding. For the ERDF, the European Regional Development Fund, we have found a bit more than 400 million to support social enterprises, and a large amount was channeled via the Interreg programs. Let us move to the next slide, please, Silke. And the other 3 topics we're looking at is the conditions in financial intermediaries. So if we look at the conditions in financial intermediaries, one has to add, for example, the easy transaction cost support call, which was quite influential and quite helpful for intermediaries, which helped them to cover the operating costs for the investment practices. It was also important, we also looked at the USEF regulation, the European Social Entrepreneurship Fund regulation, which came into force in 2013 and was adopted and amendments were adopted in 2016. And the biggest, I would say, like the large impact we found on the availability of private finance. And Silke said at the beginning that we did something like 400 interviews, 350, I guess, a lot of interviews. And what we found a lot in the interviews was people saying that the guarantees, for example, were quite helpful in facilitating loans to social enterprises. So, for example, one bank said that they were not able to give out any loans without the guarantee program. So it really helped them to kickstart what they were doing, and it was really like it wouldn't be possible without the guarantee program. We also found a lot of support and a lot of impact for the equity products, and then it was more about the signaling effect that the EAF is investing into those funds. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat and then we can cover them later or at the same time. Another topic was about the managerial skills. We did too many questions, but I will look at them later and then we can come. I guess we have plenty of time for the Q&A later on. For the managerial skills, I guess Suzanne will talk about the role of Euclid network. And at the European level, we have quite a few networks who are very helpful in getting people together, in sharing information. Also, for example, Euclid has published a new report yesterday, so it's very helpful in collaborating and bringing people together. And we also found a number of projects which were helpful for the training of social entrepreneurs and to improve what you're doing. Next slide, please, Silke. Digitalization and new business models. The digitalization wasn't included until 2015. So we had like an update of the SBI objectives in 2015. What we find about digitalization is that there's a lot of dynamic and a lot of like momentum in this area. So you have like the increased mobile phone usage, easy access to cloud-based computing. You have more use of algorithmic decision making, and I would guess, my personal guess would be that it's going to be increasingly important in the coming years. So the digital social innovations, either blockchain, artificial intelligence, and those topics. And what we found about digitalization was, so for example, we had 2 Horizon 2020 projects, digital social innovation in Europe, where they did a lot of awareness building, community building, and also identifying best practices or good practices. We also had the collective awareness platforms. And what is quite important was the European Social Innovation Competition, which was launched in 2013. And with more than 6,000 applications up to now. And what we also found interesting is if you look at the competition, you see like certain cycles and certain waves of like what you see in terms of startup activity and what is like beginning to be more important. Which is take a look at the website of the European Social Innovation Competition. It's quite interesting to see like the development over time. And then, of course, also the promotion of digital skills. And Anne also said at the beginning about upskilling and skill development. And what we see here, for example, in Erasmus Plus. Can we go to the next slide? And then the next topic was the external action. It was also not part of the original social business initiative launched in 2011, but became increasingly more important. We have 3 areas. So we have the neighborhood and enlargement policy, the cooperation and development policy, and the working international organizations to promote social entrepreneurship. The European Commission is working closely with in international development forums, for example, the the G20 Inclusive Business Framework, and there were quite a lot of conference and events over the last years. What we found was quite significant, and when we talk with people in the Western Balkans, for example, is that they are quite thankful for the work of the European Commission and at the European level initiatives. And they are saying there wouldn't be much happening without European level initiatives. Some might disagree, but that's what we found in interviews, that there's a very large impact of the availability of EU-funded actions. And Giulia already mentioned Montenegro before, so that's where we see a lot of impact. And the instruments are the Easy Funded Action, ERDF, Interreg, and the IPA, which stands for the Instruments for Pre-Accession Assistance. And also what Giulia was coordinating, the mapping studies for the different regions, was quite important to get a feeling of what is happening and what is happening there. Okay, give me another 1 or 2 minutes and then I'm done. The last 2 slides from my side are about the EU added value. Added value is there are 2 things which are important to mention. The first topic is that's about the perception of the stakeholders about the role of the European Union, of the European Union actions, and then the added value is also something where we look at what happened to what would have happened at the national level. And what we found is this was a word cloud we did. I guess Silke might correct me if I'm wrong, from the GECAS meeting where we presented the results. So you can take a look what we were saying was important, and then you see the bigger clouds, the bigger words: access to finance, recognition, social impact. And the next one is also quite interesting. The next slide is if you look at it, it's quite interesting to see is one of the challenges when we look at European level actions is that the countries are quite different. So it's no surprise to you. But then even if you look at the countries, the EU added value was perceived quite differently in different countries. So for example, in Belgium, France, Italy, UK, it was about what we termed as developed social entrepreneurship ecosystems. So it was about visibility, public funding, the environment, research, mutual learning. And then if you look at many of the Eastern European countries, they said it's about, so for example, they said the private finance was quite important and quite helpful for the EU actions. And then and then you can read more in the study that different countries have different views. And I think it was a bit too long, sorry for that. And then I hand back to Silke. You're still on mute. Silke, you're still on mute. She doesn't. Okay, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. I was sharing the screen, so I couldn't see my settings here. And now I'm sure I cannot share a screen again. Yeah. So Yeah, sorry. I will go through the general conclusions very quickly. I think in any case, it will be more interesting to have the discussion with you. So the general conclusions were that, of course, the visibility of social economy and social enterprise is significantly increased in the last 10 years. There was a wide impact. You have seen now all the presentations. There was a wide or impact in a wide range of fields and areas with very specific improvements and progress in many fields and in many different countries. And we try to present in the report also the differences between countries, between thematic areas, and to highlight also the still persisting needs for the future. What was important, what we saw and many stakeholders shared with us was the overarching approach. So they mentioned that it's really important to have this holistic view of the ecosystem for social economy and social enterprises. So not to separate it too much, the funding aspect from the visibility aspect and the training and many other different things, and it all belongs together, and it's getting up much more speed and importance if you consider it as one ecosystem. What we learned that also there is a huge possibility now, Anne mentioned it before, with the new Commission and with the new objectives of the European Commission to strengthen the role of the social economy, contributing to the sustainable development, the EU Green Deal, the just transition, and many of the other political movements which are going on right now. And of course, we have seen this in the last year. Well, we finished the study last year in summer, but over the last year, we have seen much more potential for the social economy. I think we can all agree here on this. We defined some policy options. I think in any case, I would have gone through them very quickly to not become too detailed here. I'm sorry, I cannot share my screen right now again. I don't want to put here further delays on the session. The general policy options that we defined were to promote the consistent use of concepts and definitions. We have seen that, and I think you are well aware that the different definitions and names for social enterprises, social economy, the concepts related to non-profit sector, inclusive sector, inclusive enterprises. Well, this is, of course, showing the variety and diversity that we have in the different European countries, but it's not, well, if we want to have European-wide approaches, it's not easy to work within this framework without concrete definitions and without knowing what we are talking about and what are the different commonalities between the different concepts. So we would suggest to work on this conceptual framework for the Social Economy Action Plan, and at least to mention which type of organizations are mentioned and which can find their home within this action plan, I would say. The second general policy option or a recommendation was to continue adopting this ecosystem perspective, as I mentioned before. So because this adopting this dynamic and adaptive ecosystem perspective is really contributing to increase the impact and to of all the measures, and to stimulate also the action in the different member states and in the different regions and at the local level. Capacity building and good practice exchange are key measures here, I would say. And then, as I mentioned, the coherence between the different EU policy initiatives. So as we have seen between the social policy, the social economy action plan can also or should link also to the Green Deal, to the just transition, to the new European Bauhaus, to all these initiatives, and of course to the main funding instruments, as we have still the cohesion policy and the other funding instruments. And so it would be really helpful if they are mentioned within these larger contexts of also the funding programs and the funding schemes. Then we defined, I think, 10 concrete policy options referring to the visibility of social economy and its beneficial role in the overall Green Deal and the just transition. We referred to the capacity building, education and training to support the upscaling of the social economy. So here it's very important to take into account that capacity building is not only relevant for the social enterprises or social economy organizations themselves, which could be, of course, an objective of an action plan, but also for other actors. So like the decision makers, the political decision makers, the people who work in the public authorities when they are working with public procurement, for example. So many different people need this kind of capacity building or working on the understanding of what the potential of the social economy is. The third recommendation would be to promote the legal recognition and harmonization of regulatory frameworks. And here there is a clear added value of the action of the European Commission on social economy organizations who work in different member states and in a cross-border context. Because here we can see still very high obstacles for organizations who want to do something, for example, in the context of cross-border health or emergency services, for example, or of course, labor market or education initiatives in cross-border context or in different member states. And there is still a potential to work on. The fourth recommendation we defined was to tackle the need of specific territories. So for now, the action plan or the SBI for now has been taken a view or perspective for all territories, more or less the same, I would say. And we found specific differences in the needs, for example, from social economy organizations in the rural territories or in peripheral territories compared to the urban territories. Because here now, I think everybody knows that in the urban context, now these co-working places are booming. You have a good ecosystem where new founders can come together. The needs are there, so it's quite easy. And in the rural context, there's a need for training centers. There's a need for more specific funding support for social entrepreneurs or for social economy organizations. And it's much more difficult to work in this context of low population density and larger distances. The fifth recommendation refers to enhance the access to finance. So here again, we see still a need to stimulate more funding and more activities through a better access to funding. Let it be through the public funding, so EU funding, for example, in the EU programs, but also the private funding. So, and Wolfgang mentioned here the results that we have, but I'm sure he can also give more insights into the needs for the future regarding private finance. The enhancing the access to markets is still a priority, or should be still a priority for the future. Because here we have heard already from Anne and Anna that there is still a need to work further on the public procurement, but also on the private relationships between social economy and existing private enterprises. And lastly, the final recommendations refer to the dialogue on social impact measurement and management. And I've seen here also some sessions talking about the social impact measurement, which can be really important for different levels. So not only for the financial markets, but also for the small organizations themselves. Because the better they know their impact or their potential impact, the better they can manage themselves and they can work towards communicating also this impact. The almost final recommendation referred to the communication and dissemination of opportunities and the challenges of digitization. So here we know that there are many opportunities related to digitization, but also we know that certain groups have problems to access all these opportunities. So we see still a potential to think about vulnerable groups and how the inclusion through digital technologies or advanced technologies can be ensured. And the final recommendation referred then to the international area and to promote more and better the European model of social economy in the world. Many stakeholders saw here a potential for further action and for better coordinated action. And with this, I would like to thank you for your patience. And we are ready now to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Silke, Giulia, and Wolfgang, for that excellent presentation on this very, very rich study. It really is a very interesting read. I highly recommend those of you present who have not read it yet to read it. So indeed, it seems that the SBI had a big impact on many policy areas, and EU added value was clear. But there's also some homework for us on the European Commission side for the future policy initiative. But now let's hear from the sector. So Suzanne, you are the chief executive of the Euclid Network, and you're also a member of the European Commission expert group on social economy. So how do you feel? How do these messages resonate with you? What would you like to say to us today?
Yeah, thank you very much. And let me start out with congratulating the SBI Study Consortium, Silke, Wolfgang, and Giulia, for the excellent presentation. Outstanding work. It's indeed very rich, as you mentioned. Every time I see a presentation, I was taking notes and hopefully can decipher them later, because every time you discover something new elements and new things that we need to take into account. And first of all, also on behalf of the network, thanks to the Commission for committing to support the social economy through the action plan, and especially now. So even as COVID-19 plays itself out, the pandemic has sharpened social and economic divide in societies in every corner of the world, as we know. As we have major economic reforms ahead, the green and digital transition, social enterprises illustrate that an economic model that puts people and its planet at its center is not only possible, but it's a necessity. And as was shared in the presentation, the SBI was launched 10 years ago and identified several strands of action to improve the situation on the ground for social enterprise. And since then, a lot has been achieved on these strands. And in 2014, the event Social Entrepreneurs Have Your Say in Strasbourg provided a platform to take stock of the achievements and identify useful actions for the future. And now here we are at EUSIS in 2021 in a similar setting. I do feel that progress has been made, so which is very clear also through the study, but the pressure is also higher and greater. I do think we all feel that great sense of urgency at this time. So we are here to ensure that the Social Economy Action Plan accelerates real change in the years to come. Well, a short response regarding the concrete needs of social enterprises following the SBI, building on the points that our colleagues Silke, Wolfgang, and Giulia have already made. I would like to reiterate the importance of indeed the visibility of social enterprise. It was dimension B in the study. We need to be celebrating the pioneers, not just the unicorns like Tesla, but also the zebras, the ones that are scaling, making an impact, and really are pioneering them. And it's our job to showcase them and make sure that they surface and that we can provide those examples. Touching upon impact measurement, how important it is to move away from measuring and reporting successfully only by showing profit, but starting to measure and report on impacts. Our social enterprise monitor was launched yesterday, and it reports that social enterprises are increasingly engaged in impact measurement. An average of 6 out of 10 analyze their social and environmental impact, which is already quite impressive. And I think that's something that we can duplicate towards more traditional markets. Improve access to markets, it was mentioned many times. Indeed, by Social Guide, congratulations on your launch and relaunch, it was mentioned. Buy social, nudging consumers, businesses, and governments to really buy from social enterprise, and making sure that that governments set the scene, that they are showing that it can be done and how they can actively approach social enterprises. Same goes for corporates. How can they actively connect to social enterprises? Touching upon access to finance, besides the points that Wolfgang made, we need to be working more with patient and seed capital, SIB, outcome funding, I'm really happy that you also mentioned the availability of EU funds for the non-EU neighborhood countries, which is highly important and is good to be continued in the upcoming years. Then the regional support, partnerships between regions was mentioned. We really need those local and indeed regional hubs for social enterprise, co-working spaces, business support, access to finance locally, network of peers. Those are really very helpful. And Silke, you mentioned customized support for the rural areas. Indeed, in the cities, we have hubs, things are evolving, but we do need to make sure also in digitization that the rural areas are taken into account. Silke, you also mentioned bringing people together, and then we touch upon national and international networks. Social enterprise intermediaries which can engage with governments and other stakeholders and really can facilitate cross-border learning and internationalization of social businesses. They are still struggling to reach their full potential. They can do much more, or even struggling to exist. And I'll provide you with an example. Only a month ago, the Global Social Entrepreneurship Network, GSAN, they closed because they couldn't properly meet the needs of its members with the limited resources they had. So that's a loss for the sector. So dedicated support for social enterprise needs to be accelerated because the reality is that they today still face additional barriers to start up and to scale up. But on top of that, we aim for the principles of social enterprise to become the standard for all business. And the European Commission can play a big role in that. And it was great to hear also this being mentioned by DG Grow as one of the focus areas. And the role that the European Commission can play is in promoting social enterprise internally amongst all DGs and in all policy strategies, promoting social enterprise in international business summits. So we are here gathered and we're inviting corporates in and we're trying to expand our bubble. But for example, the EU Industry Days are a perfect example of how we can showcase social enterprise, social economy. Also engaging in public and private networks and coalition. To name a few, we have Pact for Impact, the COVID Alliance for Social Entrepreneurs of the World Forum, and then promoting social enterprise as a means to reach the UN SDGs in international developments. And Anna mentioned co-creation to create solutions. So I want to thank DG Grow and DG Employment for including the voices of social enterprises in shaping the Social Economy Action Plan. Your inclusive approach is really highly appreciated and it's recognized. So count on us as a network, our members and partners to collaborate in reaching real change. To close, we speak a lot on what social enterprises need, but it's also up to us all to add to the narrative and equally emphasize what social enterprise brings us to reach the green and digital transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, for your contribution. I will next pass the floor to Denis Stokkink, who is also a member of the Commission Expert Group on Social Economy, and he was a rapporteur of a report from 2016 that took stock of the achievements made so far in the context of the SDI. So Denis, please go ahead.
Thank you, Miia, and thank you to the two DG for the very good relationships that we have for now a lot of years. It's a pleasure to go together for the progress of social economy. Thank you also for the presentation of the very interesting study on the impact of EU policies on the social economy. This study highlights how the progresses are important for social economy from SBI until now. We, as social economy actors from the bottom, can confirm these progresses, and our Think and Do Tank pour la Solidarité analyzes regularly the progresses at European level as well as in the various countries. From 2015 to 2016, I effectively coordinated the preparation of a report of the GECE, the Commission's expert group on social economy, where we looked at the progress achieved. So I can confirm that in this last decade, from SBI to now, the balance is largely positive. I want to stress the important place of social economy in the structural funds, for example, the effective financial tools that have been developed, the analysis of new possibilities of working together by social economic actors through clusters, the ISER program, etc. Despite this good news, we now have to prepare the future and work to ensure that in 10 years, we have a new very positive balance, maybe even more positive. Certainly, the announced Social Economy Action Plan is a very important step to reinforce social economy at European level. In the very short time I have, I would like to underline some key challenges for social economy. One important issue for social economy actors is the promotion of the social economy where it's not so well recognized. Other speakers also underline this aspect. This relatively too weak recognition comes effectively from classic enterprises, from national authorities in some European countries, but also from European authorities in some very important policies. The action plans needs to boost the visibility and recognition of social economy for these three targets. I emphasize the need to have progress in the European policies themselves, certainly in the strategic policies from Commission. We were very happy to learn that the two main priorities of the new Commission were environment and climate on the one side, digital issues on the second one. But we were disappointed when we read the first one, the Green Deal. Not a word on the social economy, despite the fact that social economy actors are historically very committed to environmental issues, including into important recent Commission initiative, Circular Economy Action Plan and the Farm to Fork strategy. We, pour la Solidarité, published a policy paper arguing that the role of social economy in the Green Deal is fully recognized. Hopefully, Social Economy Action Plan will do this. Concerning the second priority, the digital issues, the issue of digital platform cooperatives is really crucial. More and more platforms play such an important role in European economy. Social economy has to be leader in this field with a specific place. Another third strategic European issue for this Commission is certainly the European pillar of social rights. Social economy enterprises, for instance, WISEs, even have to be recognized as avant-garde of enterprises that respect the European pillar of social rights. Developing the role of social economy actors in order to implement the pillar of social rights should now be a priority for the action plan. Lastly, and this is my very last point in the limited time, other aspects for another time, I would stress the need to develop innovative sectoral ecosystem of social economy actors through a strategy of working together, for example, for only example, cultural and creative sector, or in the transport sector. So not only, so as Anna said, social economy as a specific ecosystem, but into the social economy system, we have to study to put forward sectoral ecosystems. We think it's very important, and we have to promote the possibility, therefore, of scaling up social economy enterprises through collaborations between themselves in the same sector so that they enrich each other. So a lot of good transversal work was done these last 10 years. Thank you to Commission. And together we can do a lot and more. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Denis, also for that inspirational sentence in the end. I think we can move on. We have just over 5 minutes left, so not so much time for discussion. But if you have any questions in the audience, you still have some time to pop them into the chat there. And we could take stock of the questions that we have received so far.
Yes, so thank you, Miia, and thank you to all the speakers. We have very few time left, but I can see that most questions have already at least partly been addressed in the comments. So maybe let me recap a little bit. One question that we might want to come back on is the comment that the social economy action plan should, enhance the coherence of policies and make sure that social economy needs are adequately reflected in other Commission priorities. So I don't know, maybe I can ask Anne to quickly comment on this. There was also a specific reference by Amana Ferro from the Ergo network on the need to explicitly refer in the action plan to a certain number of key groups, as opposed to just referring in general to the target groups for the social economy. So I don't know whether you had the opportunity to read those comments, Anne, or whether you need me to. No, okay, right. So
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, well, thank you, Estelle, and thank you to the comments. I mean, on the coherence of policies, I mean, yes, we agree, and we hope that the action plan will help in this respect, because, again, to ensure the coherence in other EU policies, one of the key challenges, visibility, as much at the EU level as at other levels. And so we hope already that this new action plan, 10 years after the Social Business Initiative, will help to do that. Internally as well in the preparation, I mean, we're working closely with colleagues in other services, of course with GROW in particular, but also our commissioner will be reaching out to other commissioners. So we hope all of this process as well will help, as well as the final content will help to increase the coherence of social economy across EU programs and policies. And then on the question about specific target groups, I mean, we hear you. We know this is a call. We know that the social economy is very relevant to a number of target groups. And so we're aware of this in drafting the action plan. Of course, I'm not at liberty to go into the content at this stage, but we've heard this message and we're taking it into account.
Thank you very much, Anne. I'm just looking at Anna and Wolfgang. Were there any other points you wanted to react on from your side? Wolfgang, I saw there was an indication of, whether more creative funding approaches had been considered in the past. You shared a few questions. Do you want to say more, or?
Yes, maybe also a comment on Amana on the Roma network. What we found in interviews when we spoke with the people who were setting up the Social Business Initiative in 2011, they said that the document there were a document with 10 basic principles for the Roma community, or for the inclusion of the Roma community, and they said it was an important document for the development of the SPI. So that's just something nice to share. And I also liked Mauricio's comment about how you can use European level funding for EU funding for grant-based crowdfunding. It's a bit like the decision you have to take between how much decision, you need to find a good balance, how can you select projects, how much it's a good way to engage the community. And then, like, how much decision making do you want to allocate to the community? I would say as much as possible, but it's something where you need to find a good balance between setting up those projects. Thank you, Mauricio, for the comment. And I think it's something where we need more examples. And maybe the EU is not the best institution to set up these projects, but more city councils, regional authorities, which are working in these areas. It's just like my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, thank you, Wolfgang. If I'm not mistaken, in the context of the social finance call, we have supported at least one initiative based on this model. So the system exists. We are aware of it, and we, I think, are aware of its potential. So it's good to underline indeed. Anna, was there anything you wanted to react on from your side? I understand there was a question relating also to the practical ways we were ensuring policy coordination, and maybe you wanted to share a word on the role of the task force?
Yes, I mean, also to recall that we're discussing here the European action plan on social economy. I mentioned the package that was adopted on industry. You see now faces coming from different Commission services, but whatever policy document or legislative proposal is adopted at the level of the Commission, it is adopted by the College of Commissioners. So basically, it brings together, and it has to bring together these views and input from different policy areas. And I think we shouldn't be forgetting that. This is very much perhaps internal cuisine on the side of the Commission, but what we adopt, what we put on the table is the result of collegial work and combination of different policy actions coming from different policy areas. This is how we work. And we would like to see more of that, if you like, more of this type of coordination between different policy areas impacting on social economy, also happening at member state level, for instance. That would be a very good step. Now, beyond that, one way to work around it is, of course, the task force that you mentioned on social economy, Estelle, and there indeed we have an informal forum where we bring colleagues working on different aspects of social economy working together. We also have, as was mentioned several times during the session, another forum to engage in a more structured way, I would say, with the member states on social economy, the expert group on social economy and social entrepreneurship. And I'm happy to see that this expert group has, I would say, a particular feature, which I see for the first time during the work at the Commission, meaning that we're not only using this forum to engage with member states, but also with social economy stakeholders and the social economy community. And I think this is very beneficial, bringing all of that together. So there's different fora, different tools. We can see whether there's need to develop more or fine-tune those that we have so that we can use them at the, I would say, optimum way for the future to serve the development of policies and design actions that really meet the needs on the ground. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. I think it's high time we wrap up this session. So let me just quickly, because we are over time already, thank everybody for their input. I would like to clarify also, because there was a question on this, the updated Buying Social Guide that was referred to is just about to be published. So I could not share the link right now, but it will be widely disseminated, I hope, tonight. Basically, that's what I understand. But if not tonight, then at the latest tomorrow. So I suppose if you Google updated Buying Social Guide of the European Commission, you could find it easily. Many thanks again to all the speakers for their rich and let's say dedicated contribution to this topic, and we look forward to incorporating all the feedback received from this session, but also from the many other sessions of the users of the summit in the work we are doing, the intense work we are doing now on the preparation of the action plan. Many thanks, and have enjoyed the rest of the program.